Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. This is Charles Gaudet here. And with me today, I have one of my favorite people that I get to talk with on a regular basis. Her name is Emi Kirschner. She's been a business coach for God knows how many years and coached people on personal and so forth for over a decade. And I say I really, really love talking with Emi because each time I have the opportunity to speak with her, she not only brings a lot of unique perspective to different challenges and situations, but she also does challenge me. Her questions are so great that we really dig deep into the core heart of our clients' issues and challenges, and the solutions that we're able to provide to our clients have been extraordinary. And just with the testimonials and the results that Emi has gotten since, in one of the more difficult times throughout our history, it's just a testament to how wonderful she is and the quality of her advice and the impact that she has for her clients. So I'm really excited to bring her to you today. Welcome to the show, Emi.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much. That was such a wonderful introduction. And yes, I have been coaching for seemingly forever. I love it. and it's and I know you will agree, like it is so cool to be able to not only like help somebody in their business and see the numbers grow, see the things that we're measuring grow, but see the way that that person takes on leadership or their personal development and become somebody even greater than they already are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny because I just had this conversation the other day when I was talking to a client, and I said, business and personal, when you get to a certain point with your client, inevitably those lines blur. Like, I'm just so fortunate enough that I get to speak with some of my closest friends all the time, and they just so happen to be my clients.
right.
Just, because they become so transparent with you, and you work together to help them accomplish different goals. And I mean, I've got a client right now who just texted me while he was on the boat in Ibiza or wherever he is, just to share that sort of life accomplishment. And a lot of times they come back and they're like, one of the greatest things about the relationship that we have is I don't have a lot of people that I can be this transparent with, both on sharing my victories and how much money I've made, which a lot of people just, you just don't want to tell all your friends, like, hey, just, made an extra $1 million, like, woo, that
Right.
means, dinner's on you, apparently, always. So, you typically don't share those things. And then also from the deepest, darkest challenges, because they all too often we're wearing masks, and we want to come across everything's okay in front of our teams and whatnot when we may be dealing with deeper challenges. So it's nice to have that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the comment that I get the most frequently is exactly what you were saying, where they're like, thank you for listening and hearing me, because I don't have anybody else I can just talk to and one, not be judged, but two, like just work through what's in my head.
Yeah.
And having that space is so, so important.
And so, speaking of the different challenges and so forth, what did you notice yourself to be the biggest challenge with businesses going from 2019 over now to 2020 and beyond? What are the greatest shifts and challenges and whatnot are you finding right now?
There's so many, like the list is long. I think the biggest challenge initially was when COVID hit. People didn't know what to do. And most of my clients, I was very curious because they were all service-based and a lot of them were affected because they needed to interact with their people, directly and in person. But they all figured out ways to move their business forward. And most of them had huge increases in revenue. And I know that wasn't the case for a lot of businesses, but seeing them take the proactive action and not let them get stopped I think was one, the challenge, and two, the great success, because it's a lot easier to just kind of stay in that place of, oh, this is happening to me, and I can't, there's nothing I can do.
Right.
Right. Which I think is the difference between the growth and the fixed mindset. So seeing a lot of them struggle through, well, how do I make this work? What does, going virtual in a place where, I've always been in person, and how do I continue to serve my people at an even higher level and help them? So kind of that trickle down effect. And I think another challenge too is they, as they're coming into really, the end of third quarter for 2021, it's not using whatever happened in 2020, both whether it was really good or really bad, as the metric to judge their success or their challenges, because it's such an anomaly year.
Mm,
A lot of my people have been like, well, but we're down from this and blah, blah, blah. And use your other numbers. And
sure.
something where it's more consistent.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of space for innovation too.
Oh, definitely. And speaking of the innovation, I think that was one of the biggest opportunities that came from 2020 and 2019 and before that, companies were it was much easier to grow from just word of mouth and referrals.
Hmm.
And so they benefited from a lot of that momentum. 2020 hit, and all of a sudden, the word of mouth and referrals dried up because everybody's looking out for themselves, not really looking out to refer as many
Right.
people as possible. And for all these companies that built a business on word of mouth and referrals, now they're sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, my pipeline is dry. I need leads," and so forth. And so 2020 was a real big building year, and that spilled over into Q1 of 21, where it was all about generating these lead generation strategies. And I know you and I have done a lot of work with outbound as an example for a number of our B2B clients, and or B2C for building partnerships and so forth, and a number of other different strategies and funnels. But then all of a sudden there was this change in 2021 where there was this interesting balancing act. It was walking this fine line between wanting more business and then being able to accept more business, because at this point they're chock full.
Hmm.
And can I accept another client? I'm not sure. And so it went from, let's fill the pipeline, let's bring in as much business as possible, to, oh my gosh, how do I scale this thing?
Right.
Uh,
Who do I hire? What, should I hire? What does the team look like? How do
Right.
I keep that pipeline full and consistent? There's so many fun challenges, for me at least, in helping other business owners. And all right, now everything's kind of working again, and we're opening back up, and
Yeah.
um, and this potentially new way of doing business, or this new funnel that I've implemented, is amazing. And where do we go from here? So on my end, I've been doing a ton of work with systems, scaling, team, and really creating a solid culture that's unique to that environment.
Which is awesome. And uh, pardon my cough. But the same thing, in 2020, it feels like every year there's different themes, or every so many months there are different themes, because our economy is always changing, and
Mhm.
so forth. So, and it's funny because at the end of 2019 and 2020, I started giving these presentations all on the upcoming recession, just because we happened to notice that there was more and more commoditization and more price pressures coming in at the end of 19 and 2020. I didn't know, obviously, nobody could have predicted what happened with 2020 and the pandemic, but it turned everybody into now focusing on lead generation, and how do we become more of a must-have instead of a nice-to-have. And then, as you mentioned, in 2021, hiring became another massive challenge. I mean, just driving down the road, you can see signs. Companies that normally would be opened on certain days or certain times are closed. And the signs on the door, sorry, we don't have labor. manufacturing company. I just bought a couple products from the manufacturing company. They let me know that the supplies aren't going to be coming in because they can't get it from other people because they don't
Right.
have labor, and it's just over and over and over again. I just ordered something right before jumping on this podcast, and I got a text message back from the owner saying, sorry, we just can't seem to get, supply in the door. So now there's plenty of demand, but now there's supply and now there's hiring.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned, you're talking a lot about systems. Systems right now are critically important to scaling. So talk to me about, let's start with, what are the challenges with, with building systems? And then if you could transition into how do you build really great systems for
Sure.
a team?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, systems are critically important because without it, you're one, spending way too much time doing any one task over and over again, and it's not done the same way. So, there's no consistency with that, obviously,
Yeah,
and it creates gross inaccuracies. But you're also, and particularly in a sales situation, you're missing leads because
right.
most people are going to buy in that follow-up phase, and it takes 17 to, I think, 23 touches now to, and maybe even more now, but to get people to notice, interested, like, trust, and buy.
Yeah,
And if you start pulling back, or you just lose touch with somebody after the first couple, then I think it's 80% of all sales are left on the table because people don't follow up.
yeah,
So having that system of knowing what the touch points are, you know, when they're happening, who's dealing with them, who's reaching out, et cetera. And even in the outbound marketing that you teach, like, there's a lot of little touch points in there. So they're really seeing you and coming to you in that conversation of, we see you everywhere.
right.
So, that's what's going to create the know, like, and trust at this point, when there's always somebody else who's doing something similar to you. So, how are you standing out? How are you building all of that? And the systems create that. They create the amazing client experience. So it's not just the process; it's really, what do you want to experience in that process, what the people that are having the to do the process, and the people that it's affecting. So when I'm talking about sales and systems and processes, I'm really talking about what does that structure look like, but also the emotional piece of it. And then for me, it's starting with, because it's very easy to be like, oh, once they've had the light bulb of, oh, like, I need onboarding, offboarding, sales, I need systems for hiring, for letting people go, for training, for general office procedure. They try to do everything all at once, and then it folds into them because it becomes very overwhelming, like
Hmm.
anything else that you try to do all at once. So, we I'll have people or and clients list things out of what they want or they see as their biggest gaps, and we'll pick the top two priorities and start with one, implement it, work the kinks out, start with the second one, work kinks out. So it's pretty sequential, and it helps build that process because you've got to get everybody and your entire team on board with implementing it the same way and not varying from the path, because that just increases the margin of error.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was mentored by one of Dr. W. Edwards Deming's proteges, and then Deming's co-founder also happens to be a client. So Deming was a gentleman who basically was known as the forefather of the TQM movement and revolutionized auto industry in Japan and blah, blah, blah. But working with those two, everything always happened to be, everything had to be in a system. If we
Mhm.
come up with a strategy or an idea, it was okay, now we have to put it in the system. In the beginning, for me, that was an annoyance. It was like, oh, this is, yeah, it's slowing me down. I don't want to do this. It was a pain. It was a pain. It was a pain. Uh,
Yeah.
and then Marshall, my mentor, kept saying, variation is the enemy of excellence. Any variation begins to hurt the business. And it took me a while to understand, but when you have a system in place, it's much easier to scale, bring in talent, and ensure that you have, consistent results, and clients have consistent results.
Mhm.
It's easier for onboarding and training. Um, and more recently, one of my favorite restaurants in town, uh, I it was, and it still is one of my favorite restaurants. But what made it awesome was this bartender. I would walk in, and right off the bat, would wave, and he'd start making my drink, and
Mhm.
he would make my drink that was custom to my palate. And every time I'd come in with guests or whatnot, and he would walk in and he said, "Would you like the usual?" And I'm like, "That'd be great, please." And and also make one for my guests. And so he's like, "Great." And then we talked about different drinks over the time, and he's been with me for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden he left. Now, the problem is, when you have a business
Mhm.
that is so dependent on a key person or key people, that
Right.
creates a massive, massive, massive vulnerability. Now, I'm still going to remain loyal to this restaurant because I know the people very, very well there. But in a different situation, I'd be following the bartender.
Yeah.
And we see that with salespeople when they leave, where they'll take their book of business with them. We'll see it with employees, very, very popular in the service industry, where they'll take their book of business with them because the employees are so used that their relationship is with that one person.
Mhm.
And so they take the business with them. And so building a business, as you pointed out, Emmy, when you have an awesome client experience, or building a business so that everybody delivers consistent results, removes and reduces the vulnerabilities that allows for greater scaling down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so important because I, like you, um, when I was first introduced to systems and tracking and everything else, it was like, I don't want to do this.
No,
Saying, I'm
right.
like, can't somebody else just take the data out of my head and type it in, please?
Yeah,
Yeah. But once I started doing it, I realized like not only is it really creating excellence, I'm getting back all this time. So the thing that feels like it's going to take forever and slow me down, I actually have more time in my day and I want to play as much as possible. So I'm counting, those hours. I'm like, oh, wow, look, I can go do something else, or I can make more sales, or I can, really
right.
prioritize, what's important to me instead of kind of being in that constant grind cycle.
Yeah, and the reality is, like, you and I are the type of people that are always trying to optimize our time as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm
So
crazy about it.
yeah, me too. So I mean, there are ways, that we've figured out that, start to, that make creating systems better. Like at Predictable Profits, we have a system for creating systems, and then I'll just record a screen share, talk through what I'm trying to do, then send to my assistant, and then he creates the system and then loads it in the wiki. Or I have another friend of mine that started a franchise business, but her business is not as easy as mine, where I can just record a screen share, or ours rather, we could just create a screen share. Hers is much more manual. So I had asked her, how do you go about to build the systems with all the different responsibilities that you have? I can't imagine you sitting behind the computer documenting it all. And she said, no, just like what you do with the screen share, I hired another employee to follow me around with a video camera. And I talk through everything that I'm doing over the video camera. And then I send the feed to her assistant, who then documents and creates the
Mhm.
processes and whatnot. And so there's a lot of
Brilliant.
different, like, cheats
Yeah.
that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. If you really, think about it, you'll come up with a solution for the easiest way to document anything. And there's so many options, even with things like Otter AI, where you can
Oh,
record
right.
stuff and it'll transcribe it fairly accurately for you, so that you've got something there.
That's a
Um,
great tip.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
And
yeah,
then
it's
of
still a
course,
growth.
there's the going down the road of making sure that it gets followed and so forth, the systems, and there are a lot of ways that, that can be done through checklists
Mhm.
and so forth. But I do want to actually shift gears just a little bit. One of the things that you've been recognized for achieving a number of times is on the sales front, how you've really helped companies quite quickly increase the revenues and the numbers, and that's very attractive for a lot of people that may have been experiencing some sort of plateaued growth to shattering that plateau and then boom, achieving a massive surge. So what would you say some of your favorite strategies are for breaking those plateaus?
Really, it's just looking at things newly. And I find most businesses fall into that space I was talking about where they're not following up. So
Oh, right.
like that's I think the hidden gem is that low hanging fruit. Like you don't need to necessarily create something newly and wait to test it and everything else. Like go circle back to who you talk to because you'll get, some quick sales there
Yeah.
in a short period of time because they're already, I'm going to say, sort of warm.
Yeah.
And then and I like to kind of like do both at the same time. So get those, those warm leads, the low hanging fruit while we're building, the new strategy, whether it's, outbound marketing, ads, or other, other different ways to kind of bring in the sales. But I also, with my coaching and the clients that I work with, I follow up with them every time that we meet to make sure that they're moving forward in their sales process. So
Hmm.
I really am holding their feet to the fire to make sure that we're not just talking about the strategy that, the three things that they were supposed to go do got done. And, what was the result of that?
The You brought up a number of things, and one on terms of the follow up. Uh, a research study that we did, followed by studying that of our clients, we found one statistic to be rather consistent, and that is 7.5% of all your marketing qualified leads will do business with you between 0 and 90 days. But
Hmm.
it's 42.5% of those clients will do business with you between 90 days and 2 years from now. So you got 7.5% where most clients are, or most, people are following, 0 to 90 days. But the real money, to your point, Emmy, is in the follow up, and that's from 90 days to 2 years from now. That's 42.5.
Yeah. I
So,
have I have a client now that I followed up with her every week for a year. And there was, I mean, she was clear about she wanted to work with me. It just wasn't quite the right time. And she's been working with me now for like at least 3 years.
it's amazing.
Yeah. So
But
it
but
was
it's
worth it.
and it's also, it's not, I it's not follow up. You know there's one group of people, the more popular group, that kind of reminds me a little bit of my 8-year-old when we're on these journeys, and she's like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And I'm like, not yet, not yet. I'll let you know when we're there or when we're getting close.
Hmm.
And then there's another type of follow-up, which is the type that you believe in. And so talk to me about sort of the difference between the "are you ready yet? Are you ready yet?" type of follow-up, and what actually is considered a quality follow-up conversation.
Yeah. So for me, I refer to it as like checking in. And there's times when in those check in calls, or even if it's an email, like I'm giving some advice away.
Yeah.
I'm giving them, if you're not ready to do X, Y, and Z, and I don't do this with everybody, like I have to really feel like they're committed and they're working towards being able to work together. And so
Sure.
I'll give them like a little homework to do in between calls to see if they're, ready to take action. But I'll direct them into where they need to go because a lot of times, they aren't ready, but they also don't know what to do to get ready.
Yeah.
And I will also call clients or prospective clients out in some of that follow up of, how much longer are you going to sit here and not have the success that we could have had 6 weeks ago? But there's got to be a trust built with that. And that's really the difference between the are you ready and what the approach I take is. It's really about building the trust. Like they're so grateful that I've hung out with them while they're, getting kind of a little bit more of their ducks in the row.
Sure.
And it makes for a better client. Like those clients will stay longer, invest more, and have better results than somebody who, if I'm pushing them with like, are you ready? Come on, let's go. Right. Then
You're
they're just coming
right.
in and it's not in the same mindset.
You're absolutely right. And, there are so many different ways between, you could share an article that, if somebody had a pain point with, say, I'm trying to think, pain point with maybe Facebook advertising or whatnot, and you come across an article that'd be relevant to their pain point, just sending them over the article without any expectation of anything in return. Or there'll be times when, we'll see a client update or a prospect updated their website, and we'll reach out and be like, hey, saw you updated the website. That's fantastic. And may add one piece of advice. If you bring your social proof closer up the page, you're going to see the conversions going up. Hope you don't mind the unsolicited advice.
Right.
Sometimes I just can't help myself.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that you continue to build value and offer advice. And one to two things is inevitable. Either they're going to become a client or they're going to refer somebody to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think they're appreciating your enthusiasm and your commitment to their well-being and their success, regardless of whether or not you work together. And I'm a firm believer in being very authentic in sales.
And so that, goes into another strategy. We didn't invent it, but we're leveraging the concept of the Dream 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Chet Holmes was the late Chet Holmes rather was the original creator of the Dream 100 strategy, but ties in well with, if we have different partners that would be targeting and reaching, and we're not going to follow up with every potential partner, but we're going to follow up with our top 100 people that we really, really would like to have as clients or as partners. And, we'll do the same thing as with our clients. Not everybody gets a chance to, get this persistent one-on-one individualized follow-up.
Right.
But there's going to be those in our Dream 100 that will get the individualized follow-up. But then there's also systems and processes and automation that can be leveraged to make sure we're staying in front of people, and retargeting to make sure that, we're always staying top of mind. And Google in the one of the latest studies that they put out, I believe it was in early 2021, talked about the importance of maintaining that exposure over and over again. And we could go down this whole big rabbit hole, but with iOS 14 that came out, and the way that the cookies are being tracked and so forth, like, I mean, media buying agencies are having a very, very difficult time justifying the increase in acquisition and whatnot. And a lot of the times companies are acquiring clients with no attribution because it takes that much longer for somebody to do research that's outside of the attribution window. And, like we talked about, it could take, years before somebody does business with you, but if that persistent follow-up, and then they'll eventually, just go right to the domain or Google search the brand name. And that's a whole other podcast, as like we can go on and on and on that one.
Oh yeah. It's so much fun though. Like for me, it's always being very curious, but solving the next problem.
Right.
Right. Because there's nothing, even though some of it can seem repetitive, it's really not, because there's always a new twist into whatever is working or isn't working. So I love being in this place where I get to help people really look at, what's working and what's not, and put it all together so that more is working than not.
Sure.
And particularly with the amount of data that we can get, I think it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is talk to me about like your favorite, I guess, case study, so to speak. So what was the challenge that was being faced and the strategy that you used to overcome that challenge and the results of that?
God, there's so many. I love all of my clients. That's a really hard.
It's like, which one of your kids do you love the most, right? So
That depends on the day with the kids. I'm going to say the client that I have right now is an attorney and growing. Like her practice is growing, and she's really having two challenges. One is stepping up into leadership, and two is they've got sales coming in, but it has been inconsistent, and she still wants to hold on to everything. So how do we create a consistent sales pipeline of higher quality clients for her too? Because some of her clients, struggled to pay, et cetera. So we really, with the Dream 100, kind of narrowed that in.
Mhm.
And then shifted the marketing for that. And then on the flip side, helping her with, again, what does the ideal team member look like in the different areas that she needs assistance with, and then having her let go and delegate so that she feels okay. It's been so cool because in, I think, less than 6 months, they're above what their goal was for the year.
Wow.
And she's hired an exceptional new team member, and somebody else is, self-selected out, which was perfect. And she's just rocking it. She's really got like the whole CEO mindset, which is what I refer to, kind of the leadership piece. So it's, as things are coming in and at her, she's no longer as overwhelmed. So she's showing up differently as the leader with her team, and being more decisive and getting more involved, and really changing the dynamics of how they're all working together. And then we've got some really cool long-term plans where she wants to have a couple of other businesses going. So it's been, again, a lot of fun, but it's that she's so committed to making that incremental change every time we
Yeah.
talk.
It's sometimes our favorite success stories and our biggest success stories aren't always the ones that have the biggest financial impact. It can be the impact to the entrepreneur itself. And if you look at this bottle, right, this bottle has got, at the top of it is where the CEOs often position themselves, right, and they become the bottleneck,
Right.
and they actually are many times the single biggest reason why the company isn't growing as fast as it should be growing.
Mm-hmm.
I learned this lesson early on, many years ago, when one of my team members was kind enough to, quote unquote, fire me, and asked me to kind of like back off for a week while I was on vacation, and I came back and the company had done better off. As you know, in August I had COVID, and COVID was a bit of a challenge, right? So I was out for 2 weeks, and in the 2 weeks that I was out, I'm proud to say that our company was tied for the best month of the year.
Congratulations.
So thank you. But that actually had, very little to,
Right.
I mean, to some extent, I mean, I guess you could also, argue, well, it's a testament to leadership, but it was also the team.
Mm-hmm.
The team grabbed the ball, and the team didn't like me out, but loved the fact that they had the opportunity to be able to really flourish, and kind of like, without me being there as a bottleneck, they could do everything that they wanted to do, and within the roles of their job, and they crushed it. They did extraordinarily well.
Yeah. I took most of last November off, and similar, I mean, sales increased for me, but it was so cool to see my team step in and take on new responsibility in
Yeah.
a completely different way. And I was not nervous about essentially just like ducking out
Yeah.
and being off grid for, weeks at a time. And it is a testament of how you're building the team, but it's really a testament of how amazing those people are.
Absolutely. I 110% agree with that for sure. So I know we're pushing up against the clock and I want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah, thank you.
This is the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. So if there was one really big piece of advice that you could give to the entrepreneurs listening that want to take their business beyond seven figures, what is that number one big piece of advice?
Delegate, delegate, and delegate.
That
You
is true.
can't really scale beyond seven figures without having support and
Yeah.
without other people taking on the things that you potentially love doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Helps to there's so much that comes in the delegating, between making sure you have the right systems to making sure you have the right team members,
Mhm.
to allows you to focus more time on the things that matter most. You're removing the bottleneck.
Bottleneck, right?
And that's true. I mean, without delegating, companies will often stay between that $1 to $3 million level.
Yeah,
When
and in that kind of chaotic, like grinding overwhelm where everybody's at that max peak, and that's not any way to function. Like one of the things I'm committed to is helping more businesses get out of that because we don't need to work that way.
you are 100% correct. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Emi. So this is Emi Kirschner. Again, she's one of our top coaches over here at Predictable Profits. Super, super happy, proud to have her on the team. I get phone calls almost every day or email messages almost every day from people who say just how wonderful Emi is, including members of our own team. Emi, I don't even know if I've told you that, but
No.
members of our own team will reach out just to be able to take a side. Just wanted to mention as a side note, be like, oh man, Emi is just phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. I'm
So
gonna blush now.
well, you deserve to. But it's been really pleasure working with you. And for anybody listening that wants the opportunity to be able to work with Emi, please be sure to reach out with us or reach out to us over at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. So this is Charles Gaudet with Emi Kirschner, and I will see you in another episode.